Welcome to Peace Now. My name is Trudy Quaif. I'm a member of Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. We're a local organization of friends and neighbors. We've been advocating for peace and justice for over 15 years. I'm your host today, and I'm joined by Maureen Aumand and John Amidon. Maureen is a longtime peace activist and member of Women Against War, and John Amidon is a longtime activist and member of Veterans for Peace. And today we're going to talk about the Kateri Peace Conference, which will take place August 16th and 17th. So, can you tell us, this conference has been going on, by the way, for 21 years. This is the 21st year. Can you tell us why you decided to have the Peace Conference in Fonda, New York, 21 years ago in 1998?
Originally, when we started, and I actually started it, I was working on closing the School of the Americas, and the School of the Americas is a school where we trained Latin American soldiers, and they turned out to be very repressive. And anyway, not to go into that entire history, but the people being persecuted in Latin America were primarily Catholics and Indians, and so I looked for a place where Catholics and Indians were together and here, and that was the place.
And I think it's continued there, partially because it's a beautiful spot. It's a kind of an indoor-outdoor place, and so midsummer, August, it's a great place to reflect with other people, come together in community.
Yeah. When people get to the shrine, they just start relaxing.
I've noticed that.
And they start talking to each other. And it just becomes a wonderful place for relaxed communications.
I notice it's a very peaceful place. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Building community around issues is, I think, one of the goals that kind of remains consistent from year to year.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What is the goal of the conference, and what have some of the past themes been?
In the most rudimentary sense, my goal for the conference is, and has always been, is just simply to get people to stop killing each other. I mean, it is that basic. If we don't stop killing each other with war, we in effect kill ourselves. And the way that actually is happening is the military is a major agent in climate disruption, with all of the use of fossil fuels, with the pollutions, and with the outright destruction, the burning of oil wells, etc., which happens in war, the improper disposal of radioactive waste, and the list is endless when it comes to militarism and pollution and climate disruption. They are so interconnected, and if we don't address it, we will all suffer the consequences.
I think by, that segue that you made, John, in a way, you've connected the history of the conference, as we look at this issue of war and militarism and, the fact that we have to stop killing each other. Our very survival, ironically, depends on it. The conference kind of has taken that big globe and looked at it from various aspects and tried to bring people who are working, in all kinds of ways, as scholars and as activists, putting their life on the line, going to other countries that are war-torn to witness. I mean, trying to take that big picture of we have to stop war and looking at it from as many ways as possible, and then trying to bring together citizens, and the goal is always to bring more citizens there, so we can build the community of people who find facility in doing that. But John's segue is to how the issue of climate connects to this bigger picture of opposing war and militarism that's been the history of the conference. And I think that it's good to make that case that this may seem a little sidebar in a way to the anti-war work that the conference has been doing, but it's part and parcel because it's so connected to our war making. And the effect of it is becoming clearer and clearer. And so the imperative is clearer and clearer to address this issue.
When we start talking about building community too, we want everybody who's listening to your show today, Trudy, to know that everyone is invited. Everyone, and we provide complete scholarships or partial scholarships or any, if there's any financial concern on your part, please come to the conference and the retreat on Friday, and we will simply give you any assistance you need.
I think one of my greatest joys every year is when people raise their hand and say, this is the first time I've ever been here, because we're expanding the community then.
I know it's a diverse group of people that attend from all over, with all different backgrounds. Some of them have been activists, some of them have never been activists.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting is, you know, often primarily we have a white audience, and I'm always asked, why aren't there any black people here? Well, we invite everybody, and we get really good assistance from the Times Union and the Gazette and other papers, and the articles are there, and everyone is invited, and we would love to see a racially diverse audience. So
And age diverse.
And age diverse, and gender diverse, and so everyone is invited. And you know, I have to say, also, we would like to see more people there of whatever race you are, because it is imperative. Climate disruption is here now. It has already happened. California, Nebraska, Iowa, Puerto Rico. What is threatening U.S. citizens, what is killing U.S. citizens is climate catastrophes and huge megastorms. And you know what? The military has not saved one person or prevented one death from climate change. And that is what is killing Americans. If you are worried about your security, please pay attention to what the scientists are saying, and that's what this conference is about.
Now, the theme this year is Defying Extinction, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, I know the movement, the Extinction Rebellion movement, which started in Europe, has really picked up speed and has caught on in this country. Is there a connection between the conference and this movement?
Well, I think, you know, the very name, the Extinction Rebellion, acknowledges an awareness of what John's talking about on young people's part who are engaging in this globally, that the time is now. There is an imperative, and I think one of the reasons we chose the title is because we've invited as our probably keynote speaker, Dahr Jamail, who's recently published a book, The End of Ice. And he makes the case that, as he says, we may have in fact already gone over the cliff. And so there's such a sense of direness almost. And so it's important to strike that note, and I think young people around the world are doing that. So yes, there's definitely, you know, thematically a connection. We've also invited some of the local people who are engaging in the movement to join us. So there'll be a workshop that includes a young woman from the Troy area by the name of Megan Mahone, who's involved with the Extinction Rebellion, and she'll be doing a workshop that will talk about, you know, that movement and what it means and how people can engage.
In Europe, there's far more progressive action and disruption, and we really need people to disrupt the ongoings and workings of, because our government isn't listening. It isn't listening on the federal level. It isn't listening really on the local level either. We need to take dramatic action now if we want to prevent the complete catastrophe that's the UN is saying will happen in 10 to 12 years.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the format of the conference. It's over 2 days, Friday and Saturday. What happens on Friday?
Well, one of the things that happened in the last few years, probably the last 10 years anyway, is that we realized that we were inviting people to come and deal with really intense issues that sometimes can be overwhelming and depressing, and that we wanted to add a feature to the conference where people could come together in a more reflective mode, where it wouldn't be so much absorbing information as finding places within, finding one's center in addressing. And it's such a great setting for doing that. And so we've invited people from various faith traditions to lead these days of reflection, or retreat as we call them. This year, we're calling this day of reflection on Friday, Nature Calls to Consciousness, a day of deep listening and reflection. And basically, we're looking to the site. The Fonda Shrine for Kateri Peace includes the site of Iroquois village, a Mohawk village, that was the most studied village by archaeologists in the state. And the remains of that village still make clear where the longhouses were. And the setting makes clear why people would settle there. But that village was essentially made extinct by the forces, the geopolitical forces that, you know, really wreaked havoc on the lives and lifestyle of the people. And so they faced this incredibly dire threat of extinction. And they're not extinct, but they had to adjust and adapt and go to their center and find what it was that moved them and made them a community. So it seemed like a great thing, given the fact that we're talking about the dire effects of climate, to really address directly the wisdom, the nature wisdom, the connection to nature, the respect for the web of life that really has led us to a place where we are, the loss of, has led us to a place of this threat. And so that will be a day of reflection, and we're going to be led by a Native woman who is, her name is Terry Delahanty, I want to be sure I pronounced it correctly, who's both Cree and Ojibwa in her background, and she's become a spiritual leader, does retreats in many places, was highly recommended by Dahr Jamail, who will lead us along with Dahr, because his study and research of climate disruption has brought him to a place where he feels that the wisdom of the Native peoples is really the answer, if there is one, for our future. So we will be using that in both reflection. We have a Native American flute maker who will be playing for us. We have a poet by the name of Melissa Tuckey who will be with us both Friday and Saturday, and she will, who addresses climate issues through her poetry, and she will help us find ways both through word and through connection to nature. We'll take a hike to the village for anyone who's interested, or provide a way to it to kind of end the day. So it's a different angle, a different way of approaching these issues, and how to internalize perhaps a place that we can move from as we face climate extinction. So that is essentially Friday, and as John says, there's a meal provided both days, and we just so are eager to have people join us.
Now, no religious background required?
No religious background required, and we've tried to make that clear over and over again, though we reach out to faith communities and would love to see a kind of groundswell among faith communities. There is no religious requirement.
We've been more of an activist conference and a regional conference.
Okay.
And we would love more local people to attend. And it's really, in everybody's interest, because understanding the problems that we are facing is a necessary step in working for the change that we need to make very rapidly.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about Saturday. What happens on Saturday? How is that different from Friday?
Well, Saturday in many ways will be a continuation of Friday, but we will provide more, more formal lectures and facts.
More like a standard conference.
More like a standard conference rather than a retreat. And more of a, school, a little bit more of school effect, but with lots of humor and opportunity to talk to each other too, and questions and answers.
And again, creating community around the issues, and hopefully imperative when people leave, they have a sense of, I'm going to do this year, or I'm going to think in this way. So some of the speakers for Saturday will be, carry over from the more reflective work on Friday. So Dahr Jamail will be the keynote speaker, and he'll be talking about the conclusions he's coming to personally about how to live his life in the face of the research that he's done globally about the hot spots that he's traveled to and the real evidence of, really dramatic climate change. Also we'll be joined, John was alluding to the military impact on climate disruption. We're going to have a speaker, Patricia Hines, who is the director of the Trop Rock Peace Center currently, but also was a public health educator at Boston University for a number of years. And she's become a very strong activist around the issues of climate change and researcher writer. And she's published in Truth Out, for example, frequently on the issue of the impact of the military on creating climate change, I think I also am hoping she can talk about the ironic fact that the military may be at the forefront of trying to address climate change, not for us, but for the military bases and for, and basically projecting the war scenarios that are going to come out of climate change. They're very busy doing that, even as our government is officially denying it.
Right.
So I think that will be an interesting kind of full circle, pathetically, ironic, pathetically frightening loop that Patricia Hines can make for us.
We need to make it very clear, though, that there's no such thing as a green war. It
Right.
isn't
Oh,
ever
right.
going to be.
Yeah, good point.
And whatever research the military is doing, it is so overshadowed by the destruction that they do to the climate.
No,
So
they're looking to protect themselves, and they're looking to project where they need to put their forces because they know there's gonna be wars because
So
of climate
we
disruption.
cannot, when people tell me about the military and all the good green work they're doing, it is so totally false.
It is. It's
That-
ironic beyond saying.
And we
greenwash.
really
Yeah,
need,
it's
we really
greenwash.
need all of the environmentalists to start addressing militarism. And the military,
Yes.
for many, many years now, they've been avoiding the
Yes.
subject.
Right.
And there is no meaningful environmental program to prevent the changes that we don't want without addressing militarism.
Yeah. And so
None.
we've invited,
So start
yes.
doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we've invited Patricia Hines to really help make sure that we're addressing that in our activist conference. Mark Dunley is also going to be one of our keynote speakers, and Mark has
great.
been an incredible locally based, but I'm nationally recognized activist and political operative, I guess if you want to use the term in the best possible light, in New York State, to bring about policies that will change at least our temporary connection to fossil fuel and hopefully, perhaps keep us in a better, more secure place for at least a short term.
Mark,
It-
yeah, he also does a radio show at the Sanctuary,
Yes.
WOOC,
Right.
the call letters. I think, it's 105.3, I believe.
I don't know.
I'm
That
pretty
sounds
sure
good.
it's 105.3, hope so.
And he's a longtime activist for the fact that we need to place our resources for human good. And I think that's why, again, his connection to climate issues
Yeah.
is connected to his long-term commitment to human good. So Mark will be there, and I think it will make for an interesting conversation because, as John points out, basically there may be nothing that will stave off climate change, but in New York State, we're hailing the fact that we are moving forward on this green climate initiative. So, there's a tension there, and, what does that mean for how we live our lives, I think will be a conversation that will develop, I think, in the course of this conference. John, is there any other things you're thinking about in terms of Saturday? There's a few other people that we can mention in terms of workshops.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, that'd be
It's an
good.
extensive program, and.
So are the workshops going on all at the same time? Can people pick one or two
Well,
of the
these-
workshops,
we-
or can they go to all of them?
We've invited the keynote speakers to address everyone. We've tried to do that
Okay.
as much as possible and
Okay.
not split, but because we had an abundance of riches this year, there will be one session of workshops and people will have to change. And essentially
Okay.
the topics will be action, in terms of the climate crisis. So we'll have the Extinction Rebellion people, the arts and climate change. Melissa Toki, the poet, will be doing a workshop along with a woman by the name of Karen Malpede, who's a recognized Manhattan-based playwright who's been doing what she calls for her whole career since 1979, a playwright of witness. She has been writing about war and the disruptions of war and writing plays and supporting the production of plays around that issue in New York City for all of these decades. And her latest play is called Extreme Weather, and it's about climate change. And she's currently working on another play on climate change. So we've invited her to come and join Melissa to do a workshop. Artists respond to the climate issue. And then one that maybe is a continuation of Friday, Dahr Jamail and our Native American spiritual leader, Terry Delahanty, will be doing a workshop on personal reaction, response, how do you deal with this as a human being to climate change. So those will be the three workshops and the presenters. And for the most part, everyone will get to hear all of the, well, we'll get to hear all of the presenters.
Okay. I know you've talked a little bit about the need for people to act. I know in September, the Extinction Rebellion has some sort of I think there's an international call for action in September. So perhaps the people attending your conference will be called to take that energy from the conference and apply it to the movement that's occurring all over the world, really, with this Extinction Rebellion.
You know, that kind of underscores, this is an organic conference, so we'll take that, Trudy, and make sure that, you know, that call to action gets clarified and, you know, offered to people.
Yeah. Is there anything more you wanted to say about that, John?
Well, I mean, basically, I think at this point, I'm an activist who blocks the gates of Hancock and does anti-drone work, and I'm really deeply concerned about the shipments, the illegal shipments of nuclear waste across the country from the Carolinas to the Nevada test site. Nuclear waste travels through 44 states on trucks in and through major cities. It's a threat to all of us. We have no long-term storage plans for it that make any sense, and we really need to address that problem. So all of this becomes part of why we need to force the government to start acting responsible, and the major corporations, both you know, the nuclear industry and fossil fuel industry, and so it just goes on and on. But our conference is concerned with all of the problems that are creating this catastrophic climate change, and we need the disruption at this point. I don't see any other way forward, because the government, the politicians are either they're so afraid of losing what privilege and wealth they have that they are living in a state of denial about the reality of the country, the world, the climate, and also about the conditions for most people here in the United States.
I think, you know, in terms of climate, I've just noticed this recently, and I don't watch that much television, but the little that I'm watching, all of a sudden I hear climate, 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 climate. In a sense, it's a train that's beginning to roll, and that it's going to roll over them. And all of us, I guess, if we don't reconsider how we live our lives and what it is that forms the core values. John, this is really heavy stuff, but I think you should invite people to dinner.
Yes. There is some fun in all of this.
Okay, good.
In the evening, starting at 5.
On Saturday.
On Saturday.
Friday or Saturday?
Saturday, August 17th.
Okay.
We are having a full dinner at Lancy's at the lake. Again, a beautiful natural setting on Lake Sacandaga, and it's just a little bit past Mayfield, up on Route 30, but before you reach Northville. And it is a lovely restaurant. The food is great, and that is part of the conference. We have speakers, we have music. Tariq Shah is going to play the bass, and will be accompanied by Sherry Bauer, Mayorga, who is a brilliant vocalist.
And Terry Robin.
Terry Robin is going to perform, and we will have speakers.
Yes, in fact, Karen Malpede her husband is an actor, well-known actor who's been in part of the New York theater scene apparently since he was 14 in the early 40s, George Bartianoff. And they're going to be doing a section from Weather Extreme that is a celebration of nature and the beauty of nature, because the bottom line is, and it's always been the bottom line with this conference, I think, that the world is beautiful.
It is.
People are beautiful.
True.
And all these difficult problems that we face, the reason for caring is that we do care. And I think bottom line, as you know, John, you're inviting people, I would like to say that to your audience, Trudy. So many people care, and they care passionately, and sometimes feel at a loss how to move forward. And I think one of the reasons people come to this conference is to find the comfort of hearing other people speak your heart and mind,
Yes.
and speak the things you care about and that you love, and address the problems that you're confronting in a way that you have the comfort of other people doing the same and speaking the same and longing for the same. So we're going to celebrate our community and our connection and the capacities that we have to cooperate and create change by ending the conference with a beautiful dinner in a beautiful place.
And I'd just like to mention some of the costs to this.
Okay.
They're very modest. If you subscribe to the entire conference with, the day of reflection, the conference on Saturday, and then the dinner, it's $75
For everything.
For everything. And
Okay.
if
And there's scholarships. you
and we have
mentioned.
scholarships too, although the dinner is not included because
Okay.
we're basically charging a break-even price at the restaurant, and we don't have
So that's
scholarship for money.
$35, I think, alone, right, John? Or 40?
It's
40 for the
for the
dinner.
dinner alone. If you just like to come to the dinner alone, it's 40 if you have the money, and we certainly need to pay our bills. The conference alone is 35, or the retreat alone is also 35, and combined they're $50. All of this is very, very modestly priced again, and just barely covers our expenses.
Okay. We're down to about 2 minutes. So last words. How can people find out how to register, and will there be more conferences if you have time?
Right. KateriPeaceConference.org is our website, Kateri peaceconference.org. Complete information is there. We will be sending out extensive emails. There will be articles in the local media soon. And you can just Google us online. And
Kateri Peace Conference.
is the best way, or Defying Extinction, but really Kateri Peace Conference. That will be
Okay.
the best way
Okay.
to get information.
How does your audience feel about getting email addresses? How do you feel about that online?
Oh,
Is it okay if I
sure,
share?
Sure.
In case you people have problems with the website, I don't mind having someone email me at aumandmaureen@gmail, and we'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
And my email is jajaja1234@aol.com. If you're Spanish, you can think ha ha ha.
No, we'll put it on the screen too. We'll
All right,
spell it
great.
out on the screen,
Fantastic.
so that'll help.
And
Now,
another conference, John.
will there be another conference?
We certainly hope so. And we're also looking for people to volunteer this year, particularly in advertising and perhaps ride giving from Albany. And we're also looking for younger people than ourselves who would like to
Yes.
continue this process, because there is the factor that we simply are not immortals, so. Oh, yeah.
Oh, the book, yeah.
The book.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the incentives for doing another conference next year is that there's going to be a book published by SUNY Press, hopefully before this year's out, and it's in line for publication. And what it is a coalition of essays by former speakers from the Kateri Peace Conference. And basically we ask them all the same questions. So they're semi-autobiographical, why they became peace activists and what drove them and what it is that they feel most concerned about in the world. And the pieces are
The
incredible.
book title is going to be Bending the York.
Okay.
Striving for peace and justice in the age of endless war.
That sounds
And-
perfect, and that's going to have to be the last word. Thank you, Maureen Aumand and John Amidon, for joining me today, and thank you all.